Elena Rivera rubbed her tired eyes as the blue glow of her laptop screen illuminated her cramped home office. 8:54 a.m. on a drizzly Tuesday morning. In 6 minutes, she'd be logging into another soul-crushing weekly status meeting with her department head, Vanessa Clarke, a woman who had perfected the art of taking credit for other people's work while simultaneously criticizing every innovative idea that crossed her desk. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Elena took a long sip of her third cup of coffee, already cold despite being poured only 20 minutes ago. She adjusted the collar of her emerald blouse, ran her fingers through her dark auburn hair, and straightened the stack of marketing reports on her desk. Just another day as a mid-level digital strategist at Thornfield Media Group, a boutique creative agency that had been acquired 3 months ago by the massive conglomerate Apex Global Enterprises. The acquisition had changed everything. What was once a collaborative, creative environment had transformed into a rigid corporate hierarchy where every decision required 17 approvals and innovation went to die in bureaucratic purgatory. Elena had been with Thornfield for 3 years, working her way up from junior coordinator to her current role, but lately she'd been questioning whether it was time to update her resume and move on. She clicked the Zoom link from her calendar invitation, expecting to see the familiar grid of faces from her marketing team. Instead, her screen flickered to life, showing a solitary figure, a man who appeared to be in his late 40s with intense dark eyes, close-cropped salt and pepper hair, and an expression that radiated quiet authority. He wore an impeccably tailored charcoal suit and sat in what was clearly an executive office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city skyline behind him. This definitely wasn't the 9 a.m. marketing team sync. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," Elena stammered, her cursor already hovering over the disconnect button, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "Wrong meeting. I must have clicked the wrong link." "Don't leave," the man said, his voice calm but commanding in a way that made Elena's finger freeze mid-click. "I've been waiting for you, Ms. Rivera." Elena's heart skipped a beat, her breath caught in her throat. This stranger knew her name. How did he know her name? She glanced frantically at the meeting details in her calendar, and her stomach dropped like a stone. The meeting organizer was listed as D. Castellano, Apex Global Enterprises, Office of the CEO. Dominic Castellano. As in Dominic Castellano, the 46-year-old CEO of Apex Global Enterprises, the billion-dollar parent company that had swallowed Thornfield Media 3 months ago like a whale consuming plankton. The man who had built his father's struggling tech startup into a diversified empire spanning media, telecommunications, and digital services. The executive whose face appeared on the covers of business magazines with headlines like The Disruptor and Corporate Chess Master. "Mr. Castellano," Elena managed to say, her voice barely steady. "I apologize for the intrusion. There must be some kind of calendar error. I was supposed to join my team meeting." "There's no error, Ms. Rivera," Dominic interrupted smoothly, leaning forward slightly. "I specifically requested this meeting with you." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Requested a meeting? With her? She was nobody, just one of probably 300 employees buried in the organizational chart somewhere between junior and coordinator. Why would the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company want to meet with her? "I don't understand," she said carefully, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. Dominic reached for something off camera and then held up a document that Elena recognized immediately and wished she didn't. "Your proposal," he said, his dark eyes studying her reaction with unnerving intensity. "The one titled Restructuring Digital Operations, a Framework for Integration and Efficiency at Thornfield Media." Quite comprehensive, quite bold. Elena's mind went completely blank. That proposal, that document, had been private. A draft she'd created late at night over the past few weeks, frustrated by the endless inefficiencies she witnessed daily. She'd only shared it with one person, her friend Lucas in the IT department, asking for his technical feedback on the systems integration section. It was never, ever meant to reach executive leadership, especially not the CEO. "How did you?" Elena began, but the words died in her throat. "We'll get to that," Dominic said, setting the document down. A notification pinged on his screen. "First, I'm going to add one more person to this meeting." someone who should be part of this conversation. The meeting chimes sounded, and Elena's screen adjusted to accommodate a third participant. Her breath caught again. It was Gregory Marsh, the Vice President of Digital Strategy for all of Apex Global Enterprises and essentially Vanessa's boss's boss. His usually warm, approachable expression looked tense and formal. "Mr. Castellano," Gregory said with a respectful nod. "My apologies for the slight delay." His eyes shifted to Elena, and his expression softened just slightly. "Elena, good to see you." Elena could only manage a weak nod in return, her throat too tight to form words. "Now that we're all here," Dominic said, straightening some papers on his desk with precise movements, "let's begin. Ms. Rivera, I'd like you to walk us through your proposal. You have 20 minutes. 20 minutes. To present a draft document she never intended anyone important to see. To the CEO of the entire company. Elena's hands were shaking as she opened the file on her computer. What choice did she have? She took a deep breath and began to speak. Elena's voice gained strength as she walked through her proposal, explaining her vision for integrating Thornfield's creative agility with Apex's technological infrastructure. She outlined streamlined approval processes, cross-functional team configurations, and data-driven client engagement strategies that could reduce project turnaround time by 40% while maintaining quality. As she spoke, she noticed Dominic taking meticulous notes, his expression remaining neutral and unreadable. Gregory's face had shifted from tense to thoughtful, occasionally nodding at certain points she made about resource allocation and talent retention. "Your assessment of our current operational bottlenecks is remarkably precise," Dominic commented when she finished, flipping through what appeared to be a printed copy of her proposal. "Though I'm curious about the cultural implications. Thornfield employees have expressed concerns about losing their creative identity within a larger corporate structure. How does your framework address that?" Elena hadn't expected such a nuanced question. "Page 14 outlines a dual-track system," she replied, finding her confidence. "Creative teams maintain their autonomy and brand identity while accessing Apex's resources and technology. Think of it as a partnership model rather than absorption. Thornfield keeps what made it special while gaining enterprise-level capabilities." Dominic's eyebrow raised slightly, the closest thing to approval she'd seen yet. "Gregory," Dominic addressed the VP directly. "Your thoughts?" Gregory cleared his throat. "It's ambitious, certainly. Some of these structural changes would require significant reorganization across multiple departments." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But the projected outcomes are compelling. The client retention strategy Elena's outlined addresses our biggest post-acquisition vulnerability." The discussion continued for another 35 minutes, with Dominic probing deeper into budget implications, timeline feasibility, and change management strategies. Elena felt like she was defending a doctoral thesis, but with each answer, her confidence solidified. This was her work. She knew it inside and out. "Thank you, Gregory," Dominic finally said. "Would you mind giving Ms. Rivera and me a few minutes to discuss next steps privately?" Gregory nodded and his video square went dark, leaving Elena alone with the CEO once more. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. "Ms. Rivera," Dominic began, setting his notes aside. "I've been concerned about our digital operations integration since the Thornfield acquisition. Your proposal addresses nearly every critical issue on my list, plus several blind spots I hadn't fully recognized." "Thank you, sir," Elena replied cautiously, unsure where this was leading. "I'm assembling a task force," Dominic continued. "An integration team that will work across all our recent acquisitions, not just Thornfield. We're talking about restructuring digital operations for 7 different companies under the Apex umbrella. I need someone with fresh perspective and the courage to challenge established systems." Elena's pulse quickened. Was this really happening? The position would report directly to Gregory, but you'd have regular touchpoints with my office, Dominic added. You'd be working alongside executives with decades of experience, many of whom won't appreciate a 32-year-old strategist questioning their methods. "I'm 31, actually," Elena said before she could stop herself, then immediately regretted the correction. A slight smile crossed Dominic's face, the first she'd seen. "Even better. The question is, are you interested?" Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed on the desk beside her laptop. She ignored it. "I'm very interested," Elena confirmed. though I need to understand more about scope, timeline, and team structure. Of course, Dominic nodded. My executive assistant will schedule a proper meeting to discuss details. She's actually trying to reach you right now. Elena glanced at her phone and saw 2 missed calls and a text from an unknown number. Apex Global, Office of Mr. Castellano. Please return call at your earliest convenience. One question, Elena said, gathering her courage. How did my proposal actually reach you? I only shared it with one person, and it was clearly marked as a draft. Dominic's expression became more measured, more careful. Let's just say I make it a priority to identify talent throughout my organization, even when that talent tries to hide in draft folders on company servers. A chill ran down Elena's spine. Company servers. He'd been monitoring internal files. Before she could formulate a response, Dominic continued. I look forward to working with you, Ms. Rivera. My assistant will coordinate next steps. Have a good day. With a professional nod, he ended the meeting. Elena sat frozen in her chair, staring at the blank screen, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Her phone rang immediately. Lucas, her IT friend. Elena, Lucas exclaimed when she answered. You're not going to believe this. I just got flagged by our security system. Someone accessed your draft proposal from my workstation last week. There's an internal investigation happening. They're saying there was unauthorized file access. It's okay, Lucas, Elena interrupted, still processing everything. I just had a meeting with Dominic Castellano. He's offering me a position on some kind of executive task force. The CEO? Lucas whispered. That's wow. But Elena, that's not all. The access logs show who downloaded your proposal. Elena's excitement faltered. Who? It wasn't anyone from executive leadership. It wasn't IT. It wasn't even authorized. Lucas, who was it? According to the system logs, it was Vanessa Clarke, your direct supervisor. The room seemed to tilt slightly as Elena processed Lucas's words. Vanessa Clarke, the woman who had dismissed every innovative suggestion Elena had made in the past year. Vanessa, who had taken credit for Elena's campaign strategy on the Meridian Tech account. Vanessa, who had been conspicuously absent from this morning's team meeting. Are you absolutely certain? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The logs don't lie, Lucas replied. She accessed your drafts folder last Tuesday at 11:47 p.m., downloaded the proposal, and forwarded it to her personal email. Then yesterday afternoon, that same document was sent to Dominic Castellano from an anonymous Proton Mail account. Proton Mail. Elena stood up, pacing her small office. That's completely untraceable. Exactly, Lucas confirmed. Which means she didn't want anyone knowing she sent it. Elena, why would she steal your work and then anonymously send it to the CEO? If she wanted credit, she would have put her name on it. Elena's mind raced through possibilities. Unless she didn't want credit. What if she wanted to get me in trouble? Sending an unsolicited restructuring proposal that essentially eliminates several management positions, including potentially hers, could easily be framed as insubordination. But that backfired spectacularly, Lucas noted. Castellano loved it. Speaking of which, Lucas continued, his voice dropping lower. There's something else you should know about Dominic Castellano. My cousin works at Apex headquarters in Seattle. She says Castellano has a reputation for testing people. Testing them how? Mind games. Unexpected scenarios. He once replaced an entire senior management team with junior staff for 2 weeks just to see what would happen. He creates high-pressure situations to observe how people react under stress. Some people call him brilliant. Others call him manipulative. Elena felt her earlier excitement curdling into unease. So this whole thing could be some elaborate test. Or a genuine opportunity, Lucas countered. Either way, you should be extremely careful with Vanessa. She's been acting strange since the acquisition. Closed-door meetings, hushed phone calls with people outside the company. Something's definitely up. After hanging up with Lucas, Elena spent the next hour researching Dominic Castellano, uncovering a complex portrait of a business leader who was equal parts visionary and tactician. At 46, he'd transformed his late father's struggling software company into a diversified empire through calculated acquisitions and bold restructuring. Industry articles described him as demanding but fair, innovative but ruthlessly strategic. One interview particularly caught her attention. When asked about his hiring philosophy, Castellano had said, I don't hire people for their credentials. I hire them for how they think under pressure. Anyone can perform well in comfortable circumstances. I need people who can see opportunities in chaos. At 2:15 p.m., Elena's phone buzzed with an email notification. Meeting request from Apex Global Enterprises, Office of the CEO, dinner meeting, Thursday, 7 p.m., the Sterling Room. Discussion, integration task force scope and objectives. Business attire. Tomorrow night. She had less than 30 hours to prepare. Another email appeared seconds later, this one from Vanessa Clarke. Subject line, urgent, my office, 3 p.m. today. Mandatory. Elena stared at both messages, her stomach twisting. The dinner with Castellano could change her entire career trajectory. But first, she had to survive whatever confrontation Vanessa had planned. She called her boyfriend of 8 months, Trevor, hoping for some moral support. Another last-minute work crisis? Trevor said when he answered, his tone already tinged with irritation. We're supposed to have dinner with my parents tonight, remember? Trevor, I'm sorry, but something major is happening at work. The CEO, it's always something major with you. Trevor interrupted. Your career always takes priority. My parents have been trying to schedule this dinner for 3 weeks. This is different. It's always different, Elena. Always urgent. Always more important than us. His voice carried the familiar edge of resentment. Trevor managed a local fitness center with predictable hours, and he'd never understood Elena's professional ambitions or the demands of corporate life. Can we please talk about this later? Elena pleaded, glancing at the clock. I have a meeting with my boss in 40 minutes, and I need to prepare. Yeah, sure. Whatever. The line went dead. Elena closed her eyes, fighting back the pressure building behind them. Her professional life was exploding with opportunity and danger simultaneously, and her personal life was crumbling under the weight of it. At exactly 3 p.m., Elena stood outside Vanessa's office, straightening her blazer and taking 3 deep breaths before knocking. Come in. Vanessa's voice was tight, controlled. Elena entered to find her supervisor standing by the window, her back rigid, tension evident in every line of her body. At 48, Vanessa Clarke had built her career on risk avoidance and procedure adherence. Her office reflected this personality, everything precisely organized, every surface cleared, every file labeled with meticulous detail. Sit down, Elena, Vanessa said without turning around. Elena complied, settling into the chair across from Vanessa's desk and waiting in deliberate silence. I received an interesting call from Gregory Marsh this morning, Vanessa finally said, turning to face Elena. Apparently, you had quite the meeting with Dominic Castellano. It was unexpected, Elena replied carefully, watching Vanessa's face for any tells. Vanessa's laugh held no warmth. Unexpected? Yes, I imagine finding yourself in a private meeting with the CEO would be unexpected. She sat down, her movements controlled but her knuckles white as she gripped the armrests. What exactly did you discuss? My proposal for restructuring digital operations, Elena answered truthfully, maintaining steady eye contact with Vanessa. A flicker of something, anger, perhaps fear, crossed Vanessa's face before her professional mask returned. A proposal you never shared with your direct supervisor. A proposal that suggests eliminating several management positions, including potentially mine. It was a personal exercise, Elena explained, keeping her voice even. Just an intellectual thought experiment. I never intended for it to be circulated. And yet somehow it found its way to Dominic Castellano's desk, Vanessa said, her voice rising slightly despite her obvious efforts to remain composed. Do you have any idea what your little exercise implies? 3 months ago, Thornfield was an independent agency. Now we're fighting daily to prove our value to Apex. Some of us have invested decades building this company. Elena remained silent, recognizing the fear beneath Vanessa's anger. 14 years, Vanessa continued, her composure cracking further. I've dedicated 14 years to Thornfield Media. 14 years of sacrifices, of building relationships, of establishing processes. You've been here, 3 years? And you think you can just waltz in and redesign everything? I didn't send the proposal to Mr. Castellano, Elena said quietly but firmly. Vanessa's eyes narrowed dangerously. Then who did? According to IT security logs, you accessed my draft folder and downloaded it to your personal email, Elena replied, watching Vanessa's reaction carefully. Vanessa's face went pale, then flushed deep red. You're having me investigated? How dare you? I didn't initiate any investigation, Elena interrupted. The security system flagged unauthorized file access automatically. For a long moment, Vanessa said nothing, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. When she finally spoke, her voice had transformed from angry to calculating. Let me be very clear about something, Elena. Dominic Castellano is not known for loyalty to employees. He's known for using people and discarding them when they're no longer useful. If you think cozying up to him will protect you when the inevitable restructuring cuts come, you're dangerously naive. I'm not trying to take your position, Elena said, attempting to de-escalate. My proposal was about operational efficiency, not eliminating experienced leadership. Vanessa studied her for a long moment, and Elena watched something shift in her supervisor's expression from defensive to strategic. You've been offered a position on his task force, haven't you? Vanessa asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Elena nodded reluctantly. And you're having dinner with him tomorrow night at the Sterling Room? Vanessa added, confirming she somehow knew about the invitation Elena had received only hours ago. Yes, Elena confirmed, increasingly disturbed by how much information Vanessa possessed. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, and a cold smile appeared on her face. Then perhaps we can help each other. What do you mean? Dominic Castellano values information, Vanessa explained, her voice taking on a conspiratorial tone. Specifically, information about what's really happening in his companies, not the sanitized reports executives feed him. That's why your proposal caught his attention. It exposed inefficiencies that others have been concealing. Elena waited, sensing there was more. I have information that would be extremely valuable to him, Vanessa continued. Information about certain financial irregularities at Thornfield that existed before the acquisition but have continued under Apex's ownership. Contract manipulation, inflated vendor invoices, revenue misreporting. Elena felt ice forming in her stomach. You want me to be your informant? I want us to form a strategic alliance, Vanessa corrected smoothly. You have Castellano's attention. I have information he desperately needs. Together, we could not only secure our positions, but potentially advance them significantly. And if I refuse? Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. Then I'll be forced to protect myself by whatever means necessary, including sharing some rather inflammatory emails you sent to Lucas during the acquisition process. You remember those emails, don't you? The ones where you called Apex Global a corporate vampire and said Dominic Castellano had all the warmth of a tax audit? Elena did remember those venting sessions with Lucas. Unprofessional, certainly, but hardly criminal. That sounds like blackmail, Elena said flatly. That sounds like business, Vanessa countered. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. 9 a.m. sharp. Elena stood, recognizing the dismissal. As she reached the door, Vanessa added one more thing. One more piece of advice, Elena. Your friend Lucas in IT. He should be more careful about accessing security logs without proper authorization. That kind of unauthorized snooping is grounds for immediate termination. It would be unfortunate if his name came up in a security review. The threat was crystal clear. Elena left without another word, her mind spinning with implications. As she walked back to her office, her phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Whatever you decide, remember, everyone has their own agenda, even those you trust most. DC. Elena stopped walking, staring at the message. How did Dominic know about her meeting with Vanessa? Was she being watched? And if so, by whom? The paranoia that had been building all day crystallized into something sharper. She carefully examined the hallways, checking for cameras she'd never noticed before. Back in her office, she inspected her laptop, her desk phone, even the picture frames on her bookshelf. Finding nothing obvious didn't make her feel better. Another text arrived, this one from Lucas. Emergency. Call me immediately. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she dialed. They're firing me, Lucas said without preamble, his voice tight with stress. HR called me in 20 minutes ago. Someone reported me for unauthorized system access. They've suspended my credentials pending a formal investigation. Lucas, I'm so sorry. Don't be, he interrupted. This isn't your fault. But Elena, whatever's happening here goes way deeper than office politics. Be careful tomorrow night with Castellano. I mean it. After hanging up, Elena sat in the growing darkness of her office as the sun set outside her window. She'd started this morning as an anonymous mid-level strategist. Now she was caught in a web of corporate intrigue involving the CEO, her corrupt supervisor, potential financial fraud, and surveillance she couldn't verify, but couldn't dismiss. Her phone buzzed again. "Trevor, can we talk? I'm sorry about earlier." At least one relationship might be salvageable, Elena thought. Though after today, she wasn't sure about anything anymore. Elena barely slept that night, her mind cycling endlessly through scenarios and strategies. By 5:30 a.m., she'd made her decision. She showered, dressed in her most confidence-inspiring outfit, a navy suit with subtle pearl buttons, and headed to the office 2 hours before anyone else would arrive. The building was eerily quiet, giving her the privacy she needed. First, she called Lucas, who answered immediately despite the early hour. "Meet me in the fourth-floor conference room in 20 minutes, Elena said without preamble. "Use the back stairwell, not the elevators." "Elena, what's going on?" "Not over the phone. Just trust me." Next, she composed a carefully worded email to Dominic Castellano, "Accept task force position. Critical information regarding Thornfield financials requires immediate discussion. Can we meet before dinner?" His reply came within 60 seconds, 6:30 a.m. "My hotel executive suite. Car arriving at your building now." Elena's eyes widened. Now, he was already sending a car? She quickly texted Lucas. "Change of plans. I have to leave immediately. Access Thornfield's financial records for the past 18 months, specifically client contracts versus reported revenue. Use emergency admin credentials if necessary. I'll explain everything later." "That could get me arrested," Lucas texted back. "I know. I'm asking anyway. Please." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Finally, give me 30 minutes. A sleek black sedan was waiting outside when Elena emerged from the building. The driver, a professional woman in her 50s, simply nodded and opened the rear door without speaking. During the 15-minute drive to the Grandview Hotel downtown, Elena's phone buzzed constantly. Trevor calling. Vanessa calling. 2 missed calls from her mother, who somehow always had the worst timing. She ignored them all. The car pulled into the hotel's private executive entrance. A concierge escorted Elena directly to the penthouse level, where Dominic Castellano waited in a suite that was larger than Elena's entire apartment. He wore dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, no tie, and was reviewing documents on a tablet when she entered. He looked up, and Elena noticed faint circles under his eyes. Apparently, she wasn't the only one who'd had a sleepless night. "Ms. Rivera," he greeted, setting aside the tablet. "You mentioned critical information?" Elena didn't sit down. "Vanessa Clarke tried to blackmail me yesterday. She wanted me to spy on your operations in exchange for not destroying my career with out-of-context emails." Dominic's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his eyes. "And she also mentioned financial irregularities at Thornfield. Contract manipulation, vendor invoice inflation, revenue misreporting. She positioned it as information I could trade to you, but I think she's actually involved." "What makes you think that?" "Because someone who's innocent doesn't try to blackmail people into forming alliances," Elena replied. "And because she's been acting paranoid since the acquisition. She also threatened my friend Lucas, who works in IT, after he helped me discover she'd stolen my proposal." Dominic walked to the suite's floor-to-ceiling windows, hands clasped behind his back. "Your instincts are correct. We've suspected financial irregularities at Thornfield for approximately 6 weeks. But suspicion isn't proof. I have someone accessing the financial records right now," Elena said. Dominic turned, one eyebrow raised. "That's technically illegal without proper authorization." "I know," Elena met his gaze directly. "But I figured you'd prefer having the evidence rather than watching Vanessa cover her tracks while you arrange a formal audit." A slight smile crossed Dominic's face. "You're bolder than I initially assessed." Elena's phone buzzed. A message from Lucas with a secure file link and a single word, "Jackpot." She opened the file on her phone, quickly scanning the contents, then looked up at Dominic. 18 months of discrepancies. Multiple instances where client payments don't match reported revenue. The differences are being funneled through fake vendor accounts, marketing research firms that don't actually exist. Total amount appears to be around $3.2 million. Dominic returned to where Elena stood and extended his hand. "May I?" She handed him her phone. He reviewed the documents in silence for several minutes, his expression growing darker. Vanessa's digital signature is on 70% of these transactions, he finally said. But there are others involved. Robert Chin from accounting. Michelle Torres from contract management. What happens now? Elena asked. Dominic handed back her phone and picked up his own, making a quick call. Carolyn, I need the legal team and our FBI contacts in conference room B in 45 minutes. Yes, I know what time it is. This can't wait. He ended the call and looked at Elena. Now you give a formal statement to federal investigators. Financial fraud across state lines falls under federal jurisdiction. Elena's stomach dropped. FBI. You've done nothing wrong, Dominic assured her. Neither has your friend Lucas. In fact, his discovery of the unauthorized file access is what broke this case open. We'll make sure he's protected. And my job. The task force position is still yours, assuming you still want it after all this, Dominic replied. Though I should mention, I've been monitoring this situation for months. Your proposal arriving when it did was perfectly timed, but not entirely coincidental. Elena stared at him. You orchestrated this. The calendar mix-up that put me in your meeting, that wasn't an accident, was it? I needed someone inside Thornfield's operations who could move freely without raising suspicions, Dominic explained. Someone smart enough to see the patterns, brave enough to pursue them, and ethical enough to do the right thing when pressured to do otherwise. Your work history suggested you were that person. The meeting was simply the catalyst to set everything in motion. So I was a test subject, Elena said, unsure whether to feel angry or impressed. You were an opportunity, Dominic corrected, and you exceeded every expectation. The question is, are you still interested in the position, knowing how I operate? Elena considered this. The manipulation was troubling, but the results were undeniable. Fraud exposed, criminals facing justice, and a genuine opportunity to reshape digital operations across a major corporation. I'm interested, she finally said. But if we're going to work together, I need honesty moving forward. No more tests, no more orchestrated scenarios. Dominic extended his hand. You have my word. 6 months later, Elena stood at the front of Apex Global's Seattle headquarters conference room, presenting the final integration framework to the full executive leadership team. As the newly appointed director of digital integration strategy, she'd spent half a year implementing changes across all 7 of Apex's media acquisitions. Vanessa Clarke was serving 18 months in federal prison for wire fraud and embezzlement. Robert Chun and Michelle Torres had accepted plea deals. Lucas had been promoted to director of IT security, implementing systems to prevent future fraud. Trevor had surprised Elena by being genuinely supportive once he understood the magnitude of what she'd been dealing with. They'd had several honest conversations about his insecurities and her ambitions, and their relationship had actually deepened through the transparency. As Elena fielded questions from the executive team with confidence and precision, Dominic sat at the head of the table, occasionally nodding approval. When the meeting concluded to enthusiastic support, he approached her. Exceptional work, Elena. You've transformed how we approach acquisitions. Thank you, she replied sincerely. Though I still wonder sometimes about that first morning. Wonder what specifically. Whether clicking that wrong Zoom link was actually a mistake, or whether you had IT route my calendar invitation to your meeting deliberately. Dominic's smile was enigmatic. Does it matter? You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Elena laughed. I suppose you're right. Though for the record, if you ever need someone to help expose corporate fraud again, maybe just ask directly next time. Noted, Dominic replied. Now, let's discuss your next project. I'm acquiring a telecommunications company in Portland, and I need someone to lead the integration assessment. Interested? As Elena followed him to his office to discuss the new opportunity, she reflected on how a single wrong meeting had changed everything, exposing fraud, launching her career, and teaching her that sometimes the wrong path leads exactly where you need to go. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.